What's up, Jess?
What's up, Kev?
All right, so we are finally live and on the right platform and
exactly where we want to be.
Exactly where we want to be. No technical issues. Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the Real Friends, Real Talk podcast. So, real quick, I just want to... first, I want to apologize for the chaos that ensued last week.
And it was a lot of chaos.
It was chaos, but we got everything worked out. We got all our headphone issues worked out and
microphone issues worked out.
And
time issues.
So we want to apologize for the announcement of a stream last week that never occurred, but we are here now, and I think it kind of worked out for the better because I
was just going to say, everything happens for a reason.
So this week we have a special guest who is a really good friend of mine. I've known him we keep going over this number, but the math is not my strong suit. So I'm going to just have him chime in here and help me out because I'm horrible. Absolutely horrible with numbers. It's embarrassing.
It's true.
My good friend Seth Friedermann is on the line. What's up, Seth?
Good afternoon. I'm good. I think the answer to the question is about 15 years.
That's crazy.
That's almost as long as us.
Yeah, I met you, Jess, in 2000. Yeah.
Okay.
So I met Seth
right around this time. So it's exactly like probably 19 years. It was right around now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy.
That's cool.
It's crazy how time flies.
It's also cool how friendships just kind of roll on, like they have their own energy. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's true.
Good friendships, that is.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's an important distinction.
So our episode this week is about addiction and how it affects the addict as much as, their families and such.
I mean, I want to think that I'm not an addict, so I'm not going to pretend to know what an addict thinks or what an addict feels. But I have had a lot of experience with addicts. I know a lot of addicts. And I want to say that most addicts have the assumption that I'm not hurting anyone, I'm hurting myself. And anyone who's ever been around an addict will know that's not true because your family is hurting just as much as you are in a different way.
I would agree with that based on my experiences and what I did to my family and friends. I would say that it's true in two ways, and one is the way that you used it, which is the assumption.
Right.
And then later comes the rationalization, and they're two different things.
Of course. Because I want to think the later part happens when you have finally, I'm guessing, hit rock bottom and you're like, okay, now I'm done. And I'm ready.
Or at least closer to it.
Right,
yeah.
Or closer to it. And you're just like, wow, I'm not only hurting myself, I'm hurting everyone who cares about me, everyone who loves me. It's hard.
I'll tell you the one thing, though, that a lot of people don't realize about addicts. And when I say addicts, I include alcoholism into that. Is that there's actually, for a lot of us, there's another stage beyond that. And that's what we call the fuck it's. Right? Like, you just stop caring. Like, you know everything that's going on. Like, you have the what little flimsy bullshit you've managed to put in front of you to make everything all right is torn away, but you don't care.
Right. Because at that moment, the only thing that matters is the next high.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Before we get into your story, Seth, I just want to. I know Jess wanted to hit on a personal story of her own, so I don't want to take away from your time to discuss her story. So let's get that kind of in there in the mix too, because we've all kind of been a little, even though Seth and Jess have never met, we've all kind of been intertwined in as far as your story goes as well, Jess.
I guess, I've been with my husband almost 7 years. I would say the last 5 years of our relationship, alcohol kind of came in and destroyed our lives little by little. I will 100% agree with Seth when he said alcoholism is part of addiction. It 100% is. As a matter of fact, when we dropped my husband off at detox, and I say we because, of course, Kevin was there, the person who did the detox and did the intake for the detox said alcohol is the deadliest of addictions you can have. And it doesn't happen, well, at least not for my husband. It didn't happen overnight. It kind of was, well, I could really go for like a 6-pack of Rollin' Rock. Can you get that for me? He never drank. He was never a drinker. Okay, no problem. Pick up the Rollin' Rock. Then it's like, I'm just going to buy like a 24-pack a week of beer and just have a couple of beers when I get home. Okay. The 24-pack became 2. The weekends was, I think I'm just going to buy a bottle of tequila. I'm just in the mood for tequila. And the weekend tequila became the Tuesday tequila. And the Tuesday tequila became the Friday tequila. And before we knew it, we were drinking tequila 7 days a week. Then tequila got too expensive.
Well, he was drinking.
He was. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say myself because I really don't drink. And then when tequila became expensive, he went on to buying half gallons of the cheapest vodka you can find. I mean, he was paying, I don't know, like $15 for a half gallon of vodka. And that was happening 2, 3, 4 times a week.
Yeah, somebody once said to me, if your alcohol comes in a plastic jug, you're an alcoholic.
Oh, and 100%. It's been coming in plastic for a really long time. And, my husband wasn't a nasty drunk. Sometimes he was, but it wasn't like his go-to. He was never, stupid, or I found him very annoying when he was drunk. But it was easy for people not to see a problem.
He was very outgoing when he was drunk, too.
Right.
And not that he's not an outgoing person, but what...
No, he's not an outgoing person.
But
he's not outgoing. He's not.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that. But one of the things that he used to do, and I would kind of have to shut him down on it because, real friends, real talk, right?
Oh, his classic line was, I'm not drunk.
I'm not drunk. I can spell my name. I can.
Look, I can touch my finger to my nose.
I know your name. I know her name is Jess, and you're Kevin, and I'm Christopher Biancardi. Like, buddy.
Right.
Science isn't on your side. You've been drinking since 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
And I think like the hardest part was the guilt that I feel because I let it go on for as long as it did. And I should have given him that ultimatum because that's ultimately what it came down to was me saying either you go to detox and get your shit together or you need to go. Because not only is it me and him, but we have a 3.5-year-old son who is on the autism spectrum, who is not easy to deal with. And on top of everything that's going on with him, when we should be focusing all of our attention and all of our efforts on him and making his life better, I have to sit around and make sure that there's enough money and there's enough of everything so that my husband can get his fix every day because I don't want him to convulse and go into seizure on the floor from alcohol withdrawal.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to jump in real quick and say. One is because it's really important to stress from a health standpoint. When doctors, medical professionals say that alcohol is the deadliest, I think that there's 2 reasons why they say that. One is it's by far and away the most common, right?
Well,
there are more people who die from alcoholism and alcohol abuse than drug abuse.
It's legal.
The other thing is that alcohol is one of the few drugs that if you attempt to detox on your own, you'll die.
Absolutely. 2 different doctors told my husband that he needed to detox in a medically controlled environment.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that's what killed Amy Winehouse. She tried to detox on her own from alcohol.
Probably.
I believe that that's true. So
I mean, a little backstory. My husband, and I just want to put it out there, he gave me permission to talk about all of this. My husband has been an addict his entire adult life. He's always been on something. A few years before we met, he had gone to detox to kick prescription pain pills.
Mm-hmm.
He had kicked pills twice on his own. And then the third time around, when he knew that there was a problem and he needed to go, he was like, I don't want to do this by myself. So he went to detox. And they gave him a drug called Suboxone. And as wonderful as it is that you can take this drug and not have to feel the withdrawal, nobody tells you that eventually you got to pay the piper. Because when you kick Suboxone, you go through withdrawal.
Yeah, it's temporary.
And it's right around, and he was on Suboxone for, he stopped doing pills in August of 2010. We met in June of 2012, and he was still on them. And he was on them for about another year after we were together, or maybe even a year and a half. So he was on them for 3+ years. So when he kicked it, he withdrew bad for the first few weeks, and then he didn't feel like himself until I would say about a month after. And that is when he started drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, an active alcoholic or drug addict is incapable of not wanting to use. Like, it's not going to happen. There's not a moment that goes by that you're not needing a substance. I used to say my battle cry when I was really in the thick of it was anybody but me and anywhere but here. Yeah. Like, I just couldn't face my own existence sober.
Right. And that's, I think a lot has to do with dealing with our son being diagnosed. It was hard, and that happened, I would say, probably about 2 years ago. And that is when his alcoholism, in my opinion, and I don't know if he'd agree, that's when it became bad. When
it kind of spiraled.
Like, when I gave him the ultimatum and told him he either needed to go to detox or he needed to leave, he had then confessed to me a few hours after, letting it soak in. He confessed to me that he knew there was a problem and that if he was going to do it, he needed to do it now because he's afraid he's going to die, because he had began drinking at 6:30 in the morning when I would drop him off the train to go to work, because he was so sick from all the drinking he had been doing the day before that he just needed something.
Yep.
And I guess I was in denial because I knew he had a bad problem. I never thought it was that bad. So when he told me, I was kind of shocked. And it's funny because everyone else I told, they were like, "Oh, I'm not surprised." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I was.
Sometimes we have a little bit of blind spot for the people that we care about, and sometimes we legitimately don't see it. So it's fine. It's probably a mix of both. The other thing I want to say is there's a great line that you can get that you'll hear sometimes. Where they say the 3 C's or 4 C's, I'm trying to remember it. You didn't cause it, and this is for people who are friends or in a relationship with somebody who's an addict or an alcoholic. You didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it. You have to give yourself permission to be free of those 3 things.
And that's 100% the truth, because let me tell you, as much as I admire and love my husband for choosing his family over his disease, him coming home from detox was probably harder than him being home drinking.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and it's still, and we're finally starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but it was really difficult because he was dealing with his, and I'm going to say it because I kind of feel like it's almost like a mourning period. You're mourning the fact, that the alcohol, the drug, whatever it is whatever your drug of choice is, that's your friend. That's your best bud. Like, that's, part of you, and you don't have that anymore. And it has to be a mourning period. And it was rough, it was rough. I called Kevin many nights crying, not knowing if I was going to be able to handle this.
Because it's a big responsibility also on, for you, because you not only have to deal with your son and also a full-time job and Chris and, the million other stresses that are in life. And the fact that everything kind of didn't go the way we had hoped with the detox
well, he went through detox, and then the plan was for him to go into an inpatient facility for like 3 to 4 weeks, but our insurance totally screwed us and only approved him for like 4 days. So we tried to do outpatient, but the outpatient really wasn't. I mean, he would take a 2-hour bus and train ride and then be there for an hour and then be like, okay, go home. He didn't see the benefit of it. And then we did the AA thing. He has a problem with, I don't know, like religion. He has a problem with religion. So it was just, he was
basically
not into it.
He believes a little more into science rather than
right. And so the
divine power.
Right. So the whole believing in a higher power thing was really hard for him to swallow, and it just didn't work out.
So Seth, when, like, okay, so Chris turned around and basically said, okay, I can't wait, because the original plan was he was going to take the week off that he had in December from work to go and do the detox.
That's what I originally had told him. I said, when you have off in December, and this all happened right around Thanksgiving. So I said, when you have off in December, go to detox. And he then turned around and said, I can't wait. If I'm going to go, I'm going to go now. So this was the weekend before Thanksgiving. So we had agreed that he would wait until the Friday after Thanksgiving. I had off from work, that he would go. We would drop him off until he could be with us for Thanksgiving, and then whatever. We didn't know what Christmas was going to bring at that point or anything.
But I think him coming and saying, I can't wait, I need to go, I thought that was a huge step for him.
So did I.
And I still, I give him a lot of credit for that. And but for you, Seth, at what point did you see or realize that you had a problem? And you can give us a little backstory if you'd like on what you yourself have gone through.
Okay, well, my path through alcohol and drug addiction began when I was 11 years old, when I started stealing drinks from the cabinet in my dad's basement, the stuff that was dusty and I knew that he didn't want. And then it just kind of progressed, as always it does, through other substances and through more intensity of drinking. And for me, it was also very tied in with violence and a punk lifestyle, which is just kind of another excuse. But that continued from the late 70s all the way through to the late 80s. It's about 10 solid years of getting worse. And the way that I got into treatment the first time was because a doctor told me I was going to die. And somehow or another that penetrated, because it doesn't always, right? Like, there are plenty of people who you can, I heard somebody tell me once, or somebody told me once that the definition of an addict and alcoholic is you can tell them the next one's going to kill you and they'll take it without even thinking about it. They don't care. And that was certainly true for me, but for whatever reason on that day, I thought different, felt different, wasn't ready to check out, wanted to feel better, something. And so I went into treatment. And it didn't take, in the sense that I got sober. And there's a difference between not drinking and being sober, in my opinion. Sobriety is a lifestyle and a change that is bigger and more all-encompassing in a person's life, and the attitudes that they have and the choices that they have and the feelings that they have, than not drinking. Not drinking is just not drinking, and it's fine. And there are people I know who to not drinking was enough. For me, ended up not being enough. So my second go at recovery didn't happen until 2000, till Halloween, just after the day after Halloween in 2000, and I have not had a drink or a drug since then. Wow. But the work that is required to beat addiction is, I don't want to say it's, because I'm going to sound like it's like harder than it is. It's just hard, but it's not harder. Like, you could do it. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. There are certain qualities and elements that the person has to possess and develop. And I say those two separate things. You have to have it, and then you have to develop it, those different qualities. But it is a lot of work. And it's stuff that nobody wants to do. Right? Like, literally nobody wants to look at themselves and be brutally honest and be open and vulnerable to other people, and not just need other people's help or accept other people's help, but like seek it, like on a daily basis. And and then there's the whole spiritual aspect, which to me is huge. But I was just talking to somebody on Twitter about, like, everybody's got their own path to recovery, and what matters is that you're not drinking and drugging. Because if you're not drinking and drugging, then all the other improvements that you might want to make in your life, or all the other things that you might want to accomplish, you got a shot. But if you're an alcoholic and you're drinking and drugging, or if you're an addict and you're drinking and drugging, you have no shot. Like, you never will move. It's like being, I'll use a Star Wars reference, it's like being frozen in carbonite. You're done. Like, this is the rest of your existence until somebody thaws you out.
Right, and that's all that really matters anyway at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, because you can't work on any of the other stuff unless you're not drinking and drugging. You're just going to, like, wither away and die. And the other thing, too, is, and you touched on it before, Jess, alcoholics and addicts, when they go into other people's lives, they're like bombs. Like, they go off and everybody gets hurt. You know what I mean? It's not, it's all the birthdays forgotten, things not gotten done that they said they were going to get done, fires started in the kitchen because you passed out while you were cooking. I mean, it's just endless. Like, you can, literally, it's an endless list of things that alcoholics and addicts do that damage themselves and others.
There's like a loss of memory, and I don't know if that's with all addicts or just alcoholics, but my husband could not remember anything.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes those physical after effects continue. I believe that I am still physically affected and mentally affected, although mentally is physically when you're talking about, like, brain electrical activity and things like that. I think I am still affected by my drug and alcohol abuse.
My husband believes so also. I mean, he hasn't been clean as long as you have, but he says that he still feels like shaky and stuff like that in the mornings, and he was like, I don't think that's ever going to go away. He's like, I think I permanently damaged myself.
Well, he doesn't know that, and let the time tell him whether or not that's true. Right. So, and the other thing too is you can and will adapt. Like, I still have memory issues, I think, so I'd be dead without my Google Calendar.
Right.
But you learn to adapt and overcome, as my cousin used to say. But, the Marine recon thing.
Seth, in your case, like you said that your addiction came with a lot of, or not just so much maybe addiction, but your lifestyle came with a lot of violence. Do you think that, and the fact that you were a hockey goalie, do you think that your memory issues could have also had somewhat been contributed to, violence or
physical injury?
Yeah, right. Sorry, I was like.
Oh, you're talking about because I've had probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 concussions. Yeah, I'm sure, but only 3 of those concussions came through hockey.
Okay.
And the worst one I ever suffered did not come as a result of sports. The worst physical injury I ever suffered in my life, which still bothers me to this day, and I have to make adjustments in my lifestyle, physical adjustments in my lifestyle, is my neck injury. And that did not come as a result of sports. That came as a result of a fight outside of a club. And I was whacked out of my mind when I got injured. So, yeah. That's the thing, too, is there's a lot of death and maiming and damage that comes from the lifestyle that's associated with drugs and alcohol. Like, you end up in places that you shouldn't be.
Right. At
times that you shouldn't be there. And you ignore, you'll get those, because your instincts aren't dead, right? Like those, the instincts that a human being has, the survival instincts, they don't die because you're drinking or drugging, but you just ignore them. Right? Like, there are many times where if I was in my right mind, I would have looked around at the people I was in the room with and been like, I don't belong here. I'm not at these people's level in terms of, like, what they're capable of, in terms of violence or whatever. So, you want to be a tough guy, so you act like a tough guy. Acting like a tough guy can get you killed. Right. I think that's the point. Right.
And that's the majority of, what the end result of people trying to be tough guys is, you end up getting yourself hurt.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
how would you say that your addictions and your substance abuse issues caused issues with your family?
Oh, geez. Well, my father, unfortunately, has passed away, but my mom is still with us, and my brother is still with us. Thank God. And it was mostly about, I think, fear and confusion about like what was going on with me. And my dad actually said to me once, he's like, "Why did you get so angry?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I really don't. To this day, I don't know exactly what was going on. I mean, I could break it down, and it was a bunch of things that combined into making me angry. And I think ultimately it was about because it was effective. Like, my anger was effective. You know, it worked in the ways that I wanted it to work in terms of the way that I dealt with the world and with other people, at least for a while. And so that was definitely a part of it, sort of like just watching somebody you know go through something like that, where they're just constantly in and out of trouble and, you know, hiding things from you and lying all the time. And there's just a confusion going on with, because I think the people who are being lied to are like, you don't have to lie to me. Like, why are you lying to me? You could just tell me, you know, I was drinking or I was whatever. But we're very, I mean, I'll say keep it on the eye. I was very childish, not childlike, because childlike is kind of cute, but I was very childish. Even as I got older, I didn't really emotionally mature, so I still kept acting like a guilty 9-year-old, you know. And then there was the time when I was in Philadelphia where, you know, I was in the middle of failing out of college that my parents were sending me to, and involved with a bunch of people that, you know, shouldn't have been involved with, and doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And they didn't know whether I was alive or dead for like months at a time, you know. So I can't imagine what that must be like for a parent, you know.
So would you say, judging by what you're saying, your family was very much aware that you were going through things?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the hesitancy in your voice when you tried to say that sentence is what they were feeling, and that is, he's going through something. We don't know what it is.
Or do you think that they really knew what it was, but they just didn't want to think it was that?
I don't know. They didn't have any experience with it. Like, nobody in my family, besides me, really was, had a huge issue. Like, in their generation growing up, they didn't know anybody who was an alcoholic or a drug addict, right? So, like, I don't think if you have any context that you might necessarily go to that in terms of like, oh, well, that's what's going on. It's like they said about your husband, Jess. Like, there are people around you who probably have had some experience with addicts and alcoholics who were like, oh, well, yeah, obviously.
Right?
Absolutely. But if you don't have any context, then you don't know, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's something. He's just weird. I don't know, you know.
So let me ask you a question. Since you become clean and you're not doing drugs, you're not drinking anymore, do you feel like you found something else to like satisfy that craving?
I already know the answer to this.
No, I don't know if you do, Kevin. You may. I think the answer to the question is actually probably going to surprise most people, and that is that no, I haven't, because I don't need that anymore. Right? Like, life is satisfying. Right? Were you right, Kevin?
I thought you were going to say coffee.
I'm not a coffee addict, though, because I only have my little bit in the morning, and it's all medically approved. And like, I just asked my doctor, medically approved. I just asked my doctor once. I'm like, I drink 24 ounces of coffee and 2 cups in the morning. Is that okay? And he was like, yeah. So there's my medical approval.
All right, well, I guess
I don't crave it, and I don't need it to do anything, and I can go without it if I have to, and just like coffee. But no, in terms of like what the intensity of the drugs and the alcoholism, no, because I don't need anything. Like, life is stimulating enough, cool enough, exciting enough. Conversations are amazing, you know. So you kind of don't necessarily. That's the difference between cross-addicting and not being an addict. Like, cross-addicting is when you just replace it with something else that then therefore does all the same shit to other people. You know, like, you're consumed. It's all you do. Blah 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 blah.
Because I know a few people. I mean, I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but I do know a few people who have been addicts, and now they're like, you know, they're not addicted to drugs and alcohol anymore. Or I don't want to say that they're not addicted anymore. I'm going to say they're not actively using drugs and alcohol anymore, but they eat like a gallon of ice cream a night.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's to me, that's, again, without knowing their situation, that's cross-addicting. Like, that's the difference, that gets to the heart of the difference between sobriety and not using, right? Sobriety is where you're finding some sense of purpose, peacefulness, and contentment, right? Like, happiness is easy, right? Like, an ice cream would make me happy. A great movie would make me happy. Happiness is cheap. Contentment, fulfillment, that's like heavier stuff. That's higher level stuff, And in recovery and in the practice of the spiritual program that I have learned to do because of recovery and with the way that I approach my life and with the attitudes that I now carry into my life every day, I'm content. I'm peaceful, And for me, again, it's come down to being as much a battle with my anger as it had been with the substances. Like, I can't be angry. Like, I've got to learn to find a way to be at peace with everybody I meet, and it's a real challenge. And I still struggle with my anger. I just had a conversation with my fiance about that this morning, so, but, I'm light years better than I was. And then tomorrow, if I keep working on myself, I'll get better, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, I can make changes in myself. Being sober has restored the power of choice. Like, I have agency over my own emotions and feelings. I'll tell you, I'll finish the thought with this. The day that I learned, and it was probably around 2002, 2003, the day that I learned that you can reason with your emotions was one of the most amazing things that I ever experienced in my life. Like, the fact when that clicked into place, like, somebody said to me once, if you don't like the way you're feeling, change the way you're thinking. If you don't like the way you're thinking, change your attitudes. If you need to change your attitudes, change your perspective.
And you've said that to me also.
Yeah, and it works. Like that's like a practical path for me. And again, it's for me. I think Jess's point about everybody being a little different in recovery has to be stressed. Like, you got to find your own way.
Right. Right. I mean, the ultimate goal is to stay clean and sober off of drugs and alcohol, but not everybody does that in the same way. And as long as you're making the healthy choice for yourself, however you want to do it, so be it.
Yeah, mazel tov, right? Like, yeah, get on with your bad self. But again, I do want to point out that the goal for me, the goal of sobriety, the goal of recovery is not so much anymore about not drinking and drugging. It's about not being an asshole.
Absolutely. Because
I was a miserable son of a bitch for a long time.
And I've experienced that myself with my husband. He was not a happy person. And I don't think I'm not going to say it again. It hasn't even been 3 months. It's still early for him, and he's not happy with life 100% of the time, even now. But I have to say, I feel like when he smiles now or he laughs at something, it's more genuine than it was before.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that if he continues to work on himself, my experience is that will get stronger,
Right. Absolutely. Listen, time heals all,
Yep. And it does. It really does.
I think that
even the shit that you don't think you're going to get over, you get over.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, aside from all of this, I mean, we all have our stories. We all have our past. I've been through some crazy stuff, and it does. I mean, it takes sometimes it takes a little longer than other times, depending on the situation, but time does make things better.
I can't relate with any of you.
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
I can't relate with any of you. I haven't been through anything. My life is perfect.
Right.
No. That's a complete and total lie. But I'm working on myself.
Well, that's the thing. We're all working on ourselves every single day.
No, that's not true. There's a lot of people I meet who aren't working on themselves at all.
Well, then I feel bad.
And they're never happy.
I'll pray for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. If you believe in that and it helps, yeah, and I do. So, but yeah, so I think the journey of sobriety and the growth that comes along with it has been one of the most surprising and profitable and spectacular things that I've ever tried to do. Like, if I do nothing else in my life, this was worth it.
That's awesome. Congratulations to you. Seriously.
Thank you. And again, to be able to help people who are addicts and alcoholics, because I was one, is a great gift. as well. Because then when another alcoholic or addict talks to an alcoholic or addict, then the other alcoholic or addict who's being spoken to knows that the person is not full of shit.
Right.
Which is huge.
It is. I think it's really important in recovery, especially in the beginning, to have someone who knows exactly what you've been going through.
Yeah.
Be there to listen to you and to guide you.
Yeah, where you're talking about something that everybody else that would like be shaking their heads like you're crazy, and you look across the table and the other person's just nodding.
Right.
Yeah, like, yeah, I get it.
As we both sit here and look at each other and nod.
That's why you guys are great friends and why this whole podcast is an amazing idea.
Thank you.
We appreciate that big time. So I was a little, and you can attest to this with our friendship, Seth, is I was a little, not skeptical, but a little hesitant to ask you to be on this podcast because I'm always, and I'm always saying this to you, I'm always worried about, like, am I going to say something that's going to, like, overstep my boundaries or whatever, you know? So I'm, to be honest, I was a little like, I don't know if he's going to want to, like, openly talk about all this. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, no, he's going to totally want to be on this. Because it's
well, you're right, and you know me very well, and so that shows that you know me very well, and I don't really, as I sit here and think about it, I can't think of any boundaries that we have. So
that's
I don't know
a
if we
very
have
good
any.
point. And
Kevin doesn't have many boundaries.
That's true. I'm listen,
especially with his close friends.
I'm open about everything. And
okay, wait. I just have to let everybody know who's listening what's happening here. Kevin has been fidgeting with something for the entire length of this podcast. Okay, he dropped one on the floor and made a puppy dog sad face at me. So I looked around and found another one. It was like an adapter for the soundboard, and I found another one and gave it to him, and he was playing with that, and now he has dropped it again. I am not looking for any more little things for Kevin to fidget with.
Well, they say that the definition of insanity is that to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So there you go.
Exactly.
Kevin is clearly insane.
Right, and that's why I'm going to stop enabling him so that I'm no longer insane.
Well, first of all, I fidget a lot, and we talked about this on the first podcast.
That's right, you did.
And it's just like, I don't know if it's a nervous thing or whatever, but whatever. And it drives me nuts. Like, I sat here and I was like, I'm not going to fidget during this podcast because we brought this up last week, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fall into this category. And then I'm sitting here about maybe 15 minutes in, and I'm
not
like,
even. It was like 30 seconds in. He's got the thing in his hand. He's fidgeting.
And I'm like, damn it.
I'm fidgeting.
My friend, I said once in a conversation about some behavior that I was trying to. I used to have a problem with twitching my legs, with like kicking my legs or vibrating my legs, which for me turned out to be a sign of emotional repression.
I do.
And so it's one of the ways that I know that I'm good, at peace with myself, is when I'm not doing that, and I rarely do it anymore, which is like a real solid sign of progress for me.
I don't think I ever recall you.
But I was twitching. What's that?
I don't think I ever recall you twitching your leg.
I probably got a handle on it about a couple of years into our friendships, but it was pretty bad for a long time. And again, like I said, for me, that was a sign of emotional repression, but I don't want any of your listeners or you guys to think that that's necessarily automatically what that means, because there's 1,000 reasons that people twitch their legs.
No, but I think that's accurate.
It is accurate.
I know quite a few I know quite a few people who do it, and I know that they do it because they're either bored or they're annoyed, and it's like,
I am a leg twitcher. It's a family trait. Everyone in my family twitches their legs, and most of the time they twitch when
nuts.
Yes, he hates it. Most of the time, and I know for myself, and I know true for a few family members of mine, when we twitch, it is one of two reasons. Either we are extremely nervous, or we're extremely angry and we're getting the energy out by twitching our legs instead of getting up and punching the person in the face who we'd like.
Yes, that was part of it. Was part of my anger. Like I said, anger is my predominant emotional issue. So, but I was talking to somebody about it because it was driving somebody who I was very close with and is still a dear friend. Kevin actually knows Elizabeth, but I said to her, she said, "Stop that." And I said, "I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody." I was sort of defending myself. And she looked at me and she said, "Progress faster."
That's great.
And that's probably the last time you shook your leg.
Right.
Maybe that might have been the moment. Yes.
So, getting back into the whole addiction aspect, I would like to know, what was your rock bottom? What happened that made you absolutely say that that's it, I'm done, no more, I need to start living my life?
Okay, in what is one of the most classic junkie things that I can say, it wasn't when I almost died. Like back in Philly in the '80s, in the late '80s, that wasn't it, right? That's not it. It was, fast forward 13 years later, when I used to have a big problem with speed. I did a lot of speed. I liked speed. If you're a violent person and you like violence, then speed is your drug. But speed almost killed me. Was literally destroying my body from the inside out. And so even though I didn't get sober after I got into my first attempted treatment, I never touched hard drugs again. I just drank and did weed because I thought that was okay. Right? But again, if you're an alcoholic or an addict, in my belief, there's no such thing as any amount. Right?
Right.
So in 2000, there was a night that I had in New York that went, by my standards of the day, went really well. I was at a party, and high-end party, and dropped a lot of money, and surrounded by beautiful people, and just a great time. And at the end of the night, I remember thinking, I wish I had some speed. Because if I had speed, then tonight could continue, right? But I didn't have any money. And I went back home, and I passed out, and I came to the next day. It's funny, when I used to tell the story, I would say it's morning. I came to in the morning. It was 2 in the afternoon. Which is, again, is a very junky thing to say.
Sounds like a Saturday.
It's daylight, so it counts as morning. And I woke up crying. I had something snapped in me overnight. Like, I don't know if I had a dream or whatever. For me, I think it was grace. And I came to, and I said, God help me, I suck at running my own life. And I was crying my eyes out. And that's when I started to attempt to recover again, successfully, to this point.
And how many years do you have under your belt now?
18. Just November 1st, 2000, and is my sobriety date, November 1st, 2000.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's really...
And I always say, and Seth and I talked about this earlier when we were doing our pre-show phone call, I always say, yeah, we would definitely, we would still be friends, if I knew you back then, we would still be friends because we still have a lot of things in common. And Seth would probably, most of the time Seth would say, well, yeah, we probably would still be friends until I robbed you.
Yeah, well, the thing about being friends with me, and I think the thing about being friends with anybody who's active in their addiction, and I think this is one of the things that confuses people who are around addicts and friends of addicts and alcoholics, is you're always looking at two people, and you're always wondering which one of them is going to show up. From the day that you make plans to do something together to when they get up to go to the bathroom to come back, that can be that short of a difference to change, between moments, between which person is there. Because all the things that you like about me, Kevin, were still there when I was using, right? And so probably if I was okay, emotionally, which would also have meant being high or drunk, but, sometimes you drink or get high just to kind of, be mellow, to not be crazy because you just need your fix. Yeah, probably we could have gotten along, but there would inevitably have come a day, if not several, or a moment where you saw the other side.
Right.
And then what happens from that? Smart people, when they see the other side, they'll be like, you know what? I love you like a brother, but you got to go.
Right.
Right? And that goes back to what you were talking about, feeling like you should have done that with Chris earlier.
Right.
Which I totally understand. because that is part of it. I mean, detaching with love. But they throw that phrase around in treatment like it's easy.
Oh,
it's brutal.
It's not easy.
It's brutal.
And
Because the person shows up at your doorstep crying and beat up, and I mean, what do you do? You know,
or when you know that person literally has nowhere to go, and like
yeah, like what do you do
end
with
up
that?
in a
You know?
homeless
And so,
shelter or
like,
something.
I think honestly, whatever choice somebody makes in those type of moments where they're dealing with an addict or an alcoholic, it's all good. Right? Like whatever choice you make is fine. Whatever you feel like doing, just do it. Don't beat yourself up over it. You know, but again, you got to know, like, if you let an addict or an alcoholic into your house, and the other thing that drives people crazy about addicts and alcoholics is when they tell you that this time it's going to be different, they mean it. It's just about 15 seconds later, they don't.
Right.
And that's just the truth of it, right? And that makes alcoholics and addicts so difficult to deal with. Like, I stole people blind, you know, who were nice to me. But when I told them I was going to get clean or sober or different or whatever, I meant it.
Right.
So your bullshit detector doesn't go off because the person in front of you means it until you have enough experience with addicts or alcoholic going, you know, yeah, I know you're lying because your lips are moving.
And I mean, not only does the addict or the alcoholic mean what they're saying when they say it, you as a person who loves that person and cares for that person wants to believe it. You don't want to think,
sure.
I don't want to think that my husband's
This time will be
lying to my
different.
face.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not easy. And when I gave my husband that ultimatum and told him that if he didn't go to detox, that I was going to divorce him, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do because I don't want to divorce my husband. I love my husband. I knew my husband before he was drinking. You know, like, and a lot of people fail to realize that, you know, when they found out what we were going through, and, you know, people care about me as well and don't want to have to see me going through this on top of everything that I am dealing with other things, you know, and but I know the man that my husband is. I know that he would give anyone the shirt off their back or off of his back. He would give somebody his last dollar if they needed it, you know, like I know how he is. So it was hard for me to turn around and say, I'm going to leave you. Like, we're not going to be together anymore. You're destroying our family.
Yeah.
Do you think for him that was like, you know, in a weird way, like his come to Jesus moment where he was like, oh shit, this is real. I need to fix this.
I think it was part of it. He's also, I mean, after all of this and when he finally decided that he was going to go to detox and he started confessing to me like how out of control his drinking really was. I think a lot of it also had to do with the fact that he knew that if he didn't get help, something bad was going to happen. And he said that to me. He said, he was like, I have to go. And I would notice it. I would notice for a long time him waking up when we'd be driving to the train in the morning and he would he would go to like change the radio station or adjust the thermostat in the car and his hands would be shaking. And I'm like, you're shaking. He'd be like, no, I'm not. And try to play it off because he didn't want me to worry, but I was already worried. And this is also, I need to add, my husband has a really bad problem with his blood pressure, and he takes 5 blood pressure medications a day on top of a cholesterol medication and diabetes medication. So I'm thinking about all this. I mean, if I would wake up in the middle of the night and check to make sure he was breathing because I would be afraid that he would be dead next to me. Like, that's how I lived my life for the last few years. So
it's kind of how you are with me. Like, if she doesn't hear from me in like by like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever on a Saturday,
I'm calling his mom.
She's like, are
someone
you
get
alive?
over there. Are you breathing? Let me know what's going on. It's just, I don't know. That's just me. I always play the mother of the group, no matter what the situation is. And
I always tell her, don't worry, if I'm dead, you'll know. I'll tell you.
He'll haunt me for the rest of my life.
So, here's an interesting story. When we dropped Chris off at the detox, it was the second time, right? It was the second.
Right, because we had gone the Friday right after Thanksgiving, but the insurance company was closed. They couldn't get the authorization, so we had to bring him. Ended up waiting until Monday to bring him in. So it was the second time.
Healthcare reform.
Right.
Anyway, so he, you know, obviously they tell you can't go into the detox sober. So what? You know, he brought a water bottle with some vodka in it or whatever, and it was filled. Well, okay. It wasn't fully filled.
He was drunk when he walked into detox.
Anyway, so we're standing outside, and he puts the bottle down, and Jess goes upstairs with him, and we all go upstairs, and then I went down. I forgot. Oh, because you went to work.
Well, I went to work and you had to go to work.
Right, and I was leaving.
We were and we both saw it, didn't we? Oh no, because I stayed in the building. That's right.
And then I was downstairs. I was walking to Metrotech, and I came outside and I looked where he had put the bottle, and the bottle was gone. And I was like, it gave me like chills. I was like, that's fucking weird.
And he called me. He's like, "Yo, the bottle's gone," and I'm like, "Wow." That's
So it could be total coincidence. The cleaning crew could have come by and picked that up or whatever, or maybe and I get this from Seth, so he'll understand the reference when I tell this, my thought process. Maybe an alcoholic who was in need and couldn't get into detox today came by and saw that bottle and was like, "Oh, is this water or is this alcohol, or whatever." Because Seth has taught me and drilled into my head that we don't judge people because we don't know whether that person is going to need that last, your last dollar or, to get them into detox the next day so they don't overdose and die or whatever. That's
the goal is to give people a shot.
Right.
Whatever you got to do.
Or sometimes give them $57 inadvertently. There was a story behind that. Another time, another place.
Yeah, another time. We'll have to have a show about stupid things Kevin's done.
Now that's appointment TV right there.
It's oddly accurate, actually. So, Seth, I appreciate you coming on and being open with us about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And
I appreciate being asked.
Maybe it's given you some insight, Jess, on...
It absolutely has. And I want to just say that this is not the last time we're going to touch on this subject. In the future, I definitely think we'll do another show about addiction and other aspects of it. I know that my husband would like to come and talk. He just didn't feel ready to do it right now. It's, like I said, it's still new to him. But in the future, we'd like to have him come on, and maybe we can even have Seth on also again, and they can, get it from both sides.
Love to do it.
Right. I got more.
And if anybody out there who's listening to this is struggling or knows somebody who's struggling and is struggling with the fact that that person they know is struggling, I'm not hard to find on social media. So
thank you for that. That's really amazing of you.
And what's your Twitter handle, Seth?
It's at Seth Friedermann. It's just my name, except that it's too long, so they dropped off one N.
Okay. Just spell out Friedermann for...
Sure. It's at SETHFRIEDERMAN, which is not my last name. My last name is Friedermann with two N's at the end, but that's fine. Courtesy of Twitter.
That was news to me. So.
Yeah.
Kevin's been spelling it with one N this whole time, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I mean, it doesn't change anything. Seth knows where it's at. So.
Nope.
So do you wanna wrap this up, Jess, or do you wanna?
Yeah, we can wrap.
Or
it
is
up.
there other topics you wanna?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much touched home on everything. Again, we'd love to hear from you guys. So if you have any ideas for any upcoming shows, you have any questions for us regarding this episode, if you have any questions for Seth and maybe you're too shy to reach out to him on social media and you want to go through us, you can always email us at realfriendsrealtalk@gmail.com.
Yep, you can do it anonymously as well. You don't have to tell us who you are. Just reach out, and if we can figure out a way to, help you out and, steer you in the right direction, whether it's somebody or you yourself, we're all about trying to, keep it real and help you out.
Absolutely. We will gladly give you suggestions on places where you can go or where you can take your loved one.
We're really good at researching, aren't we?
We really are. We research everything.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a good habit.
When we were looking for the places for Chris,
We were going back and forth all day long. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, yeah, I don't like this one. This one sounds more like a prison. I don't want him to feel like he's in prison, And
I pretty much consulted with Kevin on everything because Chris was in detox and he was only allowed to call me when they allowed him to. I couldn't really discuss anything with him. So it was more of a discussion between me and Kevin. Like, okay, what are we going to do here? Because I need another set of ears because I'm about to lose it.
Right.
That's what friends do. It's amazing the number of ways that friends can support each other. It's I think that one thing I would want to say, just based on that topic before we close, is don't ever underestimate your ability to help your friends.
Right, and you brought me to a topic that I wanted to bring up. If you know that someone is going through a situation, whether it's an addict or whatever, and even though it's happening to the person, the addict or whatever, or the person who's sick and whatnot, always take that moment to ask the person who you're associated with that's going through this or has somebody going through this, to say to them, how are you feeling? And when my father was sick last year, there was a coworker of mine whose mother had dealt with cancer, and every day I would come in and the first thing she would say to me was, how's your dad? He's doing good today. She's like, and how are you feeling? And that meant a lot because people don't realize that yes, the addict is going through it and they're detoxing and or whatever, but the other person's going through something just as much, if not more.
And I have to say that Kevin did an awesome job at texting or calling me every single day and saying, okay, how's Chris? Did you hear from him? What's happening? And how are you? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Because most of the time I wasn't okay. So having him ask that really helped.
That's the Jewish Yenta in me, by the way.
I know, because you just have to know the goings on.
Right. I'm a gossip queen, and I'm not ashamed by that. There are others who I know that are gossip queens that should be ashamed of that, but that's beside the point. I'm not going to digress at this point. But yeah, you have to take the moment to evaluate how everybody in the situation is feeling. Even like, parent or whatever. It's like they need to know that they're not going through this alone either, and that's something that I think a lot of people tend to forget. And it's not done intentionally. It's not that somebody doesn't care. It's that they might not realize that the person is going through this also,
Right.
Yep.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And you have to take that moment to say, how are you feeling? How, you can ask about the person, but make sure that you say to them, how are you? And then, but also, on the flip side of that, you also have to be willing to listen to what that person is going through.
Right. Don't just nonchalantly ask somebody just because you should, just because that's the social thing to do.
Right.
Want to actually hear the answer, because I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be very emotional, very lengthy, and it's going to involve a lot of crying and a lot of sobbing, and it's not going to be pleasant for you as the listener. But it's important for that person to know that he or she has someone there to listen.
Right.
So be genuine about it.
If you're not willing to listen and you're not willing to take the time to listen to that person, then in all honesty, not to sound like a complete douche, but then don't ask, because you have to be willing to sit and listen, because yes, you care about the person going through the issue, but that other person is going to need you just as much. And if you're not willing to listen and you're going to sit there and try to steer the conversation away from something, if it makes you uncomfortable, don't ask. Just, accept the fact that you're going to probably be looked upon as an inconsiderate douche.
You also shouldn't ask how that person's doing, and then once they tell you and turn around and say, oh, I'm really sorry, but do you know what happened to me today? Because really, nobody gives a fuck. I'm just
saying. You know what? I'm going to come right out and say that if that person does that, then that's not your friend.
I 100% agree.
And that does happen. But what's funny, when that happens, see, now we're getting into a little different topic here, which I'm okay with, because I think this is important too. When that happens, that person might not even realize that they're being, you know, self-centered or whatever.
No, because it's just in their nature to be a douchebag, or a douchebag.
Don't have those people in your life.
Right.
Just when they pop up and you recognize them, just you know, just kind of like quietly let them go.
It's not a thing, Kevin.
And I think
life is too short to surround yourself with people like that. They'll find somebody else. You aren't important anyway.
I think part of when you're battling through an addiction with somebody is you really learn who your friends are, because a true friend is going to be there for you. And if somebody's sitting there going, well, you know, all right, you know, good luck, you know, peace out, see you when I see you, it's like, no, man, like you gotta kind of you gotta imagine, what if that was you? What if that was you going through that? What if, God forbid, you were sick and somebody, because basically that person is sick. Addiction is not, you know, a choice. It's a sickness.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it gets problematic sometimes because the science isn't all conclusive about whether it's an illness or whatever. But nonetheless, it is. All you have to know about somebody who's going through an addiction is they are not in control.
Right.
And treat them accordingly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember too. Is treat that person how you would treat someone, you know, with cancer. You know.
Yeah.
Are you gonna not be there for somebody who has cancer because it's not cancer? You know, like, you know what I mean? Or
well, the one thing I would say though is, you know, treat them like they have an illness, but also like don't leave your valuables hanging around.
Yeah, that's a
you know,
it's
not exactly the same thing. It is in spirit, but there's some practical applications to dealing with an addict or an alcoholic that you want to make sure, like, you know, if you value your loose change, you know, don't keep it around. If you like your jewelry, you know, that kind of stuff. So meet them in neutral ground, buy them a meal, that kind of thing.
Right. Which you've done.
You don't have to you know, play Jesus.
Right.
So there was only one person who was any good at playing Jesus. He's long gone. So
yes, and his name happened to have been Jesus.
Right.
So, yeah, exactly. I wasn't going to say that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, Jesus played Jesus. Probably could have won an Academy Award for his performance.
Exactly.
So
this has gotten off on a whole weird tangent. Go ahead.
I thought we weren't going to discuss politics and religion, so let's end it here.
I'm not.
I don't think of Jesus, like, in terms of, because I'm not actually a Christian, I don't think of Jesus in terms of being a religious person. I think of him as being like a sage. You know, like if you followed his advice, you'd have a good life.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate.
Yeah, and there's other people whose advice you could follow and have a great life too. So,
yeah, like mine.
Yeah, and mine.
Like what?
Like mine.
And mine.
I give great advice. Kevin never listens to me.
All right, I'll just say yes.
Well, Seth gives good advice too, and I don't really listen to him.
You don't listen to anyone. You want to know why?
Because I do what I want.
Right.
On that note, we're gonna end it here.
Yes, we're gonna say goodbye for the week.
And,
well, thank you.
Seth,
thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for being on and for answering all of our questions and being open and honest.
If you guys have any suggestions or ideas that you'd want us to talk about, you can shoot us an email at realfriendsrealtalk@gmail.com.
And please remember to like us on social media.
At Real Friends, Real... Hold on.
Well, it's Real Friends Real Talk Facebook page. And then our Twitter handle. Sorry, we're still
because Twitter screwed us.
Right.
So it's Friends Talk Pod.
Yes.
On Twitter.
Like us at Friends Talk Pod. Come on, we want to become official. We want the check mark.
Yes, we need to be verified. So let's make that happen.
Absolutely.
# verify.
Right.
And you know, we'll always be improving things. This is the first time that we've had a call.
Right, and it actually went really well.
And it sounds really good.
It sounds really good, so I'm excited about that.
Yes, I'm. Thank you.
And it's our first time on YouTube, so
yes, yep.
Things are going well there, and we seem to have all of our sound issues down, so that's a plus.
Yep.
And now we need a topic for next week, so shoot us some ideas.
Yep, and we'll throw a vote out there. You know, we'll give some suggestions and join the conversation, guys, because you know we encourage viewer participation.
Absolutely. So, we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. suggestions.
Yep.
Anything you got, throw at us.
We're also, I think we're gonna retouch on the subject of can exes be friends? Because I think given the issues that we had previously with that episode, I think we should kind of
I know I got some feedback from a few people I know who listened and said that it was going in and out, so maybe we can retouch on that and just a couple of other things. Maybe we can have a show about multiple things.
Right.
So we'll see. But we'll definitely be back next week.
Take the ride with us, guys. This is going to be a fun time.
Yep.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap this up. I'm going to play the little outro music again because that was fun.
Which eventually will be customized, I just want to say.
Yes, we're gonna work on it. And I own the license to that music, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So everything a work in progress. So
yes.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.